2017, the voting, the BC provincial election. You know about the Canadian elections that happen every 4 years, right? Well, hopefully, at least. For the benefit of anyone that doesn't, every 4 years, Canada calls a federal election. This is how Canada decides who will be the next PM. Pictured, Prime Minister Trudeau on the traditional Mount of our people. But did you know that BC has its own election? In Canada, every province has an election to decide who will be in charge of the province until the next provincial election is called. The way this is done varies with each province, but in BC they have an election every 3 to 5 years depending on how the government is doing and many other factors. So how did all this start? Well, back in 1867, Canada became a nation, and our first PM, Sir John Macdonald, succeeded in getting a law passed in which the Parliament took control of the right to vote in 1885. Then 13 years later, the provinces regained control under the government of Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and that resulted in 10/13 federal general elections held between 1867 and 1920. In 1871 the first general election was held for the province of BC for the Legislative Assembly, but remember it was at this time still under control by the Parliament. However, by 1867, BC was able to control how, what, when and the reasons for having an election. Thus BC started to shape their provincial elections the way they needed to be for their province. In 1873 the secret ballot was introduced due to the fact that many were harassed for the way they voted or even socially shunned due to their political beliefs. Now Canada, being a democratic country, could not have that. From then on the vote was always done secretly to protect the freedoms and rights of its citizens. You may be asking how and why this is relevant to you, and that is a very good question with a simple answer. You see, these elections not only affect the provincial government, but also the things it controls, things like schools, house prices, electricity and so much more. This means that the provincial government actually has a big impact on you and your future. If you're staying in BC for the next 20 years, you will have to know this, since it is how you will be controlled and taken care of. Even if you don't stay in Canada, it is a good thing to learn. Because knowing where you stand on political issues and knowing how you decide to vote can also help you in understanding other political issues in the world. For example, if you know that you are a BC Green member, that means that your position in most Canadian politics is neutral or neutral/left. If you aren't from Canada and you are here only to study, making you ineligible to vote, it is also valuable to know You, as a student, may have already heard of the student vote. Now we know what some of you are thinking, that it's just a waste of time and that no one really cares because students are still too young to vote. What's more, if you're not from this country, why should you care? Well, yes, the student vote may not influence actual politics, but it offers a valuable glimpse into the future. Your vote and the votes of other students predict how the political playing field might change when you are eligible to vote. Even if you aren't staying, there are other members of your demographic who might be, and your vote is valuable in predicting where your community's interests and values will lie in the future. Now the question to ask knowing all of this is, where do you stand politically? Well, there are specific websites that can help you find out what your standpoint is. You may have heard about one. It's called Vote Compass. Now, there are multiple vote compasses that you are able to have access to. The most known to you are most likely the BC and Canada services, but Vote Compass has a variety of countries you can check your political status with. So it's important to know where you stand. But a simple vote compass also won't give you all the answers, since you have to do research about the topics and events that have been happening in that location for about a 6-month span to really understand what is happening. But when looking at political events, you must also keep in mind that your opinion and position can always change. To really understand what each party wants from this election and future elections, you can follow this link, https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=e2-5QU. Each part of BC has a different group of people all running for control of electoral districts, colloquially called ridings. McMath is a part of the Richmond-Staveston riding, whose representatives this election were John Yap, the Liberal candidate, Kelly Green for NDP, and Roy Sakata, who was the representative for the Green Party. Each party has their own vision for BC, but to explain it easily, the NDP and the Green Party are not that far from each other, with agreement on most things. Like that pipelines are not the key to BC's economy, but seeing how we can use our environment to our advantages. They also agree that housing and other bills for living in BC are out of control and that those need to change. The sooner the better. The NDP candidate for McMath's riding is Kelly Green. The Green candidate McMath's riding is Roy Sakata. The BC Liberals, who are actually conservative, are against most of what these two parties want. They believe that pipelines and construction in our forests are the key to our economy, and that the bills and housing prices are completely fine, and do not need to be changed. In BC, the Liberals have had a winning streak for the past 4 to 5 elections, because the NDP lost a few votes to the Green. Every election many people are reminded that voting for unpopular Green has no use, Liberals will win as long as people waste votes on Green instead of voting NDP to form a majority government that can kick them out of power. The Liberal candidate for McMath's riding is John Yap. Many call this voting with your head or logical vote, meaning it's strategic planning and settling for seconds versus voting from the heart or for what you think is right. Now, for the first time in 65 years, we may have a minority government. This is when no party has over half of the 87 seats in BC's legislature. And in this case the party with the most votes usually forms government. The magic number for a majority government in this province would have to be 44, because that's how many seats one party needs to gain full power. But since the party with the most votes still has less than half of the seats, it needs to rely on deals and alliances with other parties to pass laws and bills. In life there's no such thing as a free lunch, and we see that in how these deals work. Nobody offers their support for free. If a party wants to ally with another party to reach a majority vote, then the party making the offer has to allow the party it's allying with a right to change aspects of the bills that are passed. This is called cooperative association. In order to control and mediate this system, one party must appoint one neutral member of the Legislative Assembly (OMLA) via secret ballot to serve as the Speaker of the House of Commons. This takes away one of their votes, except where there's a tie, but then traditionally the Speaker should only vote to keep discussing. Generally, the Speaker comes from a party that can afford to spare an MLA. In our elections case only the Green Party can stand to do this. This is because the other two parties hate each other and are incredibly close in votes, and the Green have the last 3 seats. Even with a seat given to the Speaker, the votes are close enough for NDP and Liberal that the Greens' support matters, and with them also mediating, the possibility is removed that the Speaker may not be as neutral as they are meant to seem. With all this considered, hopefully now you know more about your own provincial government and how it functions. We also hope that you learned more about what you will choose in your future once it is your turn to do your civic duty. You can also choose to learn more about all of this because we could only cover the main parts of the election. All you have to do is spend a bit of time reading or watch the news to help you. Now we send you off.